Welcome back to week 5 of the front office episode of Free Tendies Fantasy. I'm here with Yanni.
What's up, bud?
Dude, it's crazy to think we're already on week 5, man. Like, this year is just flown by. It really feels like NFL just started and we're already like a quarter of the way through the season. Kind of crazy, huh?
Super depressing because you get all excited about it for like 3 months and then you're already a third of the way in or a quarter of the way in.
All right, let's get into it. All right, waiver wire pickups for the week. These ones are mine. Jaleel McLaughlin is the first one. Javonte Williams is injured. He injured his hip, and hasn't been great this year. He's still been coming back from the terrible triad on his knee. Jaleel McLaughlin appears to be the favorite backup of Sean Payton on this team. So he's going to get probably at least 1 week starting and getting the majority of the touches. Samaje Perine will probably mix in, but if you need a 1 week stopgap, I think he's worth a pickup. Last week, he went for 7 rushes for 72 yards and 3 targets, 3 receptions for 32 yards. So, like, 100 yards on 10 touches, that's pretty good. Got to keep in mind they played the Bears last week. So that is, like, the best possible matchup. But yeah, if you're a Javonte owner, I think he's worth a sprinkle of fab. And if you're not a Javonte owner and just need a week, I think he's worth, I don't know, $5 a fab. Not a lot. Next one is Quentin Johnston. Wide receiver injuries are piling up for this team. Mike Williams is out with the ACL. Right now, Jordan Palmer is running routes on all of the 2 wide receiver sets. So this is a little bit more speculative, but he's an upside stash for us. He was drafted in the first round this year, right around Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. So the draft capital's there. Obviously, if they were happy with Jordan Palmer being there too, they wouldn't have spent a draft pick on Quentin Johnston. So, I mean, especially if he gets back in the game or he starts getting in the game a little bit more, you could potentially see some progress, and it's a good offense to be in, right? Herbert just hurt his finger in the last game against the Raiders. It looks like he's going to play through it, but yeah, I'll take a wide receiver on that team, especially one with first round draft capital. Should be talented if he gets opportunity. And then Adam Thielen, he was featured in our week 1 drop list. Sorry about that. It's ugly and he's a fossil. I don't like recommending him. He's on a terrible team, but you get targets, and that's worth something. I would say PPR league, I would be more interested in him than standard scoring or half PPR. I wouldn't spend hardly any fab on him, but it's just if you need a wide receiver body in the room, he should be fine.
Okay, my 2 ads this week, one of them that I think is a little bit more under the radar because I haven't seen him talked about, I think, enough, is Joshua Dobbs. The last 3 weeks, his totals have been 25.22, 17.06, and 23.4. And this has come against the Cowboys and the 49ers in 2 of those games. He's playing elite defenses, and, he's averaging over 20 points a game, over 22 points a game, or around 22 points a game in those 3 matchups, his last 3. Personally, for me, like, if you're a Joe Burrow owner, there's some people that have Dak or have Goff, some of those guys that have been underperforming a little bit you're not thrilled with, or even just for solid bench depth. It also looks like Kyler's a few weeks out from getting ready. He rushes just enough to give you some upside there. The offense actually looks productive enough that it seems like you probably want pieces of these. Like, Marquise Brown's been doing pretty well. James Conner was an RB1 before this weekend. So he's definitely someone I'm looking to add. Marvin Mims Jr., this one I believe I saw cropping up on podcasts and whatnot last week. He's a little bit more cooled off this week. But look, the guy's only getting 5 to 10 snaps a game. It's barely anything. He does return their kicks for him. But here's the thing on him. Sean Payton traded up to get him. So obviously it's a Sean Payton guy. He covets this guy specifically enough so that he gave up extra draft capital for him. And through 4 games, he has seen 11 targets, gotten 9 receptions, 3 rushes for 255 total yards, 2 touchdowns. During those games, he's on pace for a 1,000-yard season playing 5 to 10 snaps a game right now. He's on a team with 2 older wide receivers who one would assume would be trade targets for some of these teams looking to bulk up before they go into the playoffs. So for a lot of reasons, I think that's a guy that if you have the room and if buys aren't killing you, he's worth stashing on your bench.
Yeah. I think for Josh Dobbs, you're getting the bald Mike Vick, so obviously a good one.
He has
Marvin Mims.
alopecia. Did you know that he has alopecia? He has no eyebrows and no.
Yeah, I could tell because he didn't have eyebrows. There was a kid I
And
went to middle school with. His name was Spencer DeWilt. He also had alopecia. He had the same type of like eyebrows, so that's how I knew.
yeah,
And then Marvin Mims. I like him as a speculative ad. For me, just the way I am, I'm very like opportunity driven. So the fact he's not on the field for many plays is
yeah,
like a big red flag for me. Like as a guy I normally wouldn't want. But I think what the gold is and what you said is the fact that Sutton or Judy should be trade targets here. This Broncos team is terrible. They're tanking. And if one of them gets dealt, I would not be surprised to see Marvin Mims get on the field.
yeah.
And with the full workload, then I think he's worth a shout. Because if he's doing this work with like 5 to 6 snaps a game, like give him a full game
Yeah.
and see what happens, right? Like the Broncos have nothing else to play for. They might as well get their young guys involved.
Yeah, I mean, just last week, man, 2 snaps, he put up 5.7 points in half PPR. Like that's not amazing. That's not like life changing, but 5.7 points on like 5 or 6 snaps. That's pretty good. So the week before that, he had 19. So just 15 and 19 the last 2 weeks. It's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I
I
think
would
those
not be starting.
I think those
I
negative
would not.
game scripts help him out too, for sure, right?
Yeah,
Because the Broncos are just gonna be down every game and throwing, and Russell just try and throw it deep. That's what he does.
yeah. Well, he runs those moonball routes from Russ. That's part of the reason he's been so effective on such few snaps. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they give him a real role. He doesn't have a real role right now, though. He's not worth starting.
Yeah. All right. Next, we got our buy lows. For me, the first one is Alvin Kamara. I think right now, he's probably not going to be very cheap if you try and get him, but this is elite usage. Last week, just coming off a suspension, he played 42 of 58 snaps. He got 11 catches for 31 yards, which is really incredible that he could go for that few yards on that many catches. But Carr was banged up, and he clearly is not able to push the ball downfield right now, and the Saints' offense is suffering. So I'm projecting that when Carr gets a little better, I don't know how long the AC joint sprain is going to be bothering him like it has been. He's toughed it out getting out there even, but like he's clearly not the same guy. But that offense is going to have to run through Kamara if Carr's not at full strength. And when Carr gets to full strength, like I think that's still a good thing for Kamara because then the offense will be more balanced. This is a year where there just aren't many running backs that are out there that are like featured, not only featured like for 3 downs, but getting like that type of those type of dump off passes in the backfield all the time too. So it's a usage play. He's only had 6 touchdowns in the last 2 years, so I think a lot of people are down on him right now, even though like people drafted him, right? But I would see if you're a running back needy team, I think he's somebody you should definitely take a look at. Brees Hall is my next one. Here's the deal with him. The Jets have been a just disaster this year, and he's in a timeshare with Dalvin Cook. So it hasn't been great for Brees Hall owners. I know after week 1 against the Bills, you're probably pretty encouraged, but ever since then, it's been really, really bad. The whole theory behind Brees Hall when you drafted him is that he would kind of start slow and get more work near the end of the year. And I mean, I don't think I expected Dalvin to be this bad. So to me, it's just a matter of time before they give it all to Brees because Dalvin's just washed up, I think. And really, with Zach Wilson, even though he had a good Sunday night, he was really trying to beat the Kansas City Swifties. I mean, like the only reliable way I can see the Jets scoring points if it's not a defensive touchdown is riding Brees. So I'd see what you can get for him. Maybe managers who drafted him might be in a position where they're 0-3 and just trying to get depth or whatever, right? So you might be able to get a deal done for him for a couple bench pieces. Then last one is Jerry Jeudy. He's still not all the way back from his hamstring injury. He just hasn't looked right this year. But the good news is the Broncos have like an all-time terrible defense. Like them, it was a real treat to get to watch them go up against the Bears on Sunday. That was like 2 of the most generationally bad defenses you'll ever see. So we can expect the Broncos to fall behind a lot in games this year, which means they're just going to be passing. And Jerry Jeudy, when healthy, is by far their best weapon in the passing attack. So I think that you could probably get him for pretty cheap right now too. I think he's been under 10 points every single game he's played. And the hamstring should only feel better for him as time goes on. It's kind of like how Terry earlier in this year was just really struggling, and now over the past couple weeks he started to pick it up. I could definitely see that with Judy, and Russ is going to have to throw like 50 times a game, so he might be worth trying to get. I wouldn't pay too much for him, but definitely somebody you can take a look at as a buy low.
Okay, mine, sticking in the vein of opportunities and running backs, Miles Sanders hasn't really popped off this year the way you would hope he would when you're drafting him. He was going in that RB dead zone, usually at the 4 or 5 turn or up to the 5-6 turn. I did see in some drafts he went like early 4th, which I thought was kind of wild, but he did go that high. He's had 78 opportunities through 4 games, including 23 targets. He is clearly their featured back. Chuba does get a little bit of work, but they want to feed this guy. Before this game this week, where he saw a decrease in his target share, he was like top 3 in passing game usage at running back. He's a central part of their game plan. One would assume Bryce Young's going to get better as the season goes on. So he's someone right now that is so cheap. He's only had 1 double-digit game all year in half PPR. He's someone I would go through and I would see what the owner wants. See if you can flip a bench piece or something that you may be happy you did later in the season. It's hard to say. I'm not a Bryce Young fan. I would assume that the Panthers' offense is going to look better at some point. So that's kind of what you're banking on. Ramondre Stevenson is kind of a tough one, right? He's had some really tough defenses here in the beginning of the year, and then also the Patriots have looked really rough. They benched Mac Jones last week. They scored 3 points against Dallas. My position on this one would more be that his value is probably at an all-time low, that he still was seeing between 15 and 20 and like 4 to 7 targets a game for most of the season. If he's getting peppered with targets and he's seeing 15 to 20 opportunities, and his running mate is Zeke, who averaged like under 3 yards a carry last week in his featured revenge game, to me, I saw Stevenson benched in a lot of leagues. It doesn't feel like he's going to be expensive to go and acquire. We have piles of running back injuries right now this year. The waiver wire is really thin. I think this is someone that if you can get at the right price, you're going to be happy you did. He has a few nice soft games towards the end of the year too, especially in PPR. T. Higgins, pretty straightforward here. He now has an injury. He's only had 1 productive game this year. His owners are pissed. They're annoyed. Again, a lot of drafts, I saw this guy going like top 30. I was not comfortable with him at that range, but he does have the talent and does have the proven track record. He's usually a top 15 receiver by end of season, every year he's played. So if that's the case and you're assuming some level of positive regression between Joe Burrow, between the Bengals in general, and then T. Higgins, again, see what you can get him for. See how cheap he is. Right now, I would guess that owners want out on him. I would guess T. Higgins owners want nothing to do with him. They're frustrated. He's been injured, and a lot of them probably have losing records. Seems like a clear candidate. Go and try to pick a roster, and you'll be happy you did later in the year. Joe Mixon, basically the same reasons above. He's getting elite usage, crazy usage out of his backfield. This is why me and Ted had him pretty high on our preseason rankings. This is why we were so high on him. There's actually very few running backs right now this year getting fed like that. And he's been, low-end RB2, high-end RB3s. He has not been very productive so far, especially not for where you drafted him. So his owners are annoyed. But that level of usage in the offense that's been middling, when they get it going, when they start scoring touchdowns, Joe Mixon might be a guy that you really want with you later in the season. He's someone that I'm sending offers for a bunch this week. And then Drake London is the last one. It's weird to include any of Desmond Ritter's targets in this thing. He's ruined Kyle Pitt's value. He destroyed Drake London's value, but that's kind of the point. I don't see how they stick with Ritter much longer. Arthur Smith's job feels like it's on the line this year. It feels like they have a talented enough offense, and they went out and got a premium backup quarterback that at some point this move's coming. They actually felt the need to come out this week in their press conference and say that they're not moving off of Ritter yet. They didn't say yet, but to me, yet was implied there. The fact that they're saying it probably means a move off of Ritter is coming. And in that case, Drake London's a tremendously talented player, man. This guy profiles as a true number 1 receiver. He received a 30% target share as a rookie. When he gets fed, he's very productive in the red zone. He's super productive in short yardage situations, slants, curls, all those little short routes that are easy for quarterbacks to hit. And Heineke typically has actually been really productive when he comes in and plays. Not a stud or anything, but he's certainly supported multiple fantasy options at different points in his life, and he's certainly made offenses relevant. So again, this is based on price. I'm sending offers for if I can flip Chris Godwin. If I can flip with Chris Godwin and go get a Drake London, I'm probably doing that. Poke around, see what the owner thinks. I even saw him dropped in a league or two, which is wild. This is someone who I would expect to have better days ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like, say for example, the Falcons make a deal for Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
at the deadline or something, then you could have a league winner. Like, and you
Or
could
Trey Lance. If they go get Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, a little bit of a project. Not sure if he's going to be able to step in and just do it, right? I could see Kirk coming
Compared
in
to
like and
Ritter?
making that team like a playoff contender. Not just a playoff contender, but like an actual threat in the NFC if they did
Yeah.
that. We'll see if the Vikings want to get rid of him, though, you know.
I don't know how they wouldn't be sellers, so that's an interesting, certainly an interesting point.
I think for the Vikings, the theory is that the division's wide open. Even though it seems like the Lions are running away with it, like I think their thought is that it's wide open because the Packers aren't that great and the Bears stink. That's at least what I heard. Like I heard some Minnesota pundits saying that today. So who knows how true that is? But maybe they'll sell Kirk. It seems like they were going to move off him at the end of the year, anyways, right? So if you can get picks for him, it would seem smart to me. But
best of luck to you, Vikings. Go get him.
All right, sell highs.
Okay, my sell highs first, and these two pain me because these are two guys that, as a player, I'm a big fan of, and that's Kenneth Walker the third and DK. We just came off of watching the Seahawks game, so there's certainly some level of recency bias there. But DK was a guy that a lot of people had slated for based on his red zone usage, based on a bunch of these. Some people, I think he went on that 2-3 turn last year. This year he didn't go quite as high. But there were a lot of people saying, go ahead and fire away on DK in the third round. And I'm glad I didn't pick him up at that price tag. But in the fourth round, he is someone who I grabbed a share of. Frankly, the way it looks with that O-line, Kenneth Walker, the third, the same. But that one's more nuanced. With DK, it's as simple as it looks like Geno's regressed to some degree. It looks like that O-line cannot protect him for the deep routes. You're really limiting DK's explosive plays at that point if they can't protect him very long. They have 4 or 5 injuries. They were down to their last lineman on their roster today. They carted another one off. And DK just hasn't been getting the yardage. He hasn't been getting the consistent targets. It does not feel good to me, and it's someone who I would be looking to package someone else with and get a little upgrade, but move off of him. For Kenneth Walker the third, this one's a little more complicated. He has, technically speaking, been a mid-range RB1 this year. And those have been hard to come by this season. It's not necessarily an easy thing to find, and especially in PPR, he's been doing well. But he is horrifically inefficient. When you're watching these games, and the O-line's not helping him at all. But you tend to see that Charbonnet makes one cut and he goes, right? He's like a one-cut runner. But Kenneth Walker likes to dance in the backfield and wait for holes to open up, and he's kind of looking for home run swings and all that. That, one, does not seem like what Pete Carroll wants for this offense, and 2, does not seem effective when you have an injury-riddled O-line. That's why you're seeing Charbonnet eat into his snap count so much. And now even this game, he's starting to eat into his red zone work a little bit. If Kenneth Walker doesn't fall into the end zone on the 1-yard line, his stat line looks pretty ugly today. He also did have a big chunk play, which helped clean him up. So when I say sell high on him, I am strictly speaking, if you can get a clear roster upgrade, guys I would say are clear upgrades that are at their lows right now are probably Bijan, probably Tony Pollard. I wouldn't be, or if you can package him with someone else, get a running back and get a big upgrade at a wide receiver somewhere. His value is going to be good if it's someone who just looks at the numbers. But if you're watching the games, I don't know how you can't be nervous about Kenneth Walker. Raheem Mostert. I don't know what level of value he will still have at this point, but he is still a top 10 fantasy scorer this year. If you could convince someone it was one bad game, that A-Chain's one injury away from Mostert going back, whatever you have to do, he still has a high level of, he has a 40-point number next to his name from the week before. I would be looking to see what I could get for him. I'm sure someone would give you a low-end wide receiver, a high-end wide receiver too, maybe a low-end one. I would certainly be poking around, seeing what I can get. Zach Moss is kind of interesting, and he kind of pairs along with Jonathan Taylor. It looks like the Colts are not getting the offers they want for Jonathan Taylor. They've said he's going to start resuming practice on Wednesday and presumably going to play in their game this weekend. If they don't find a trade partner, they said their plan is to repair the relationship with him. Time will tell. But in any case, Zach Moss very likely may be at his all-time high value. He had no Anthony Richardson the last 2 weeks. He balled out, and no Jonathan Taylor. Anthony Richardson eats into his touchdown and red zone equity in terms of rushes, and Jonathan Taylor would, relegate him to a low-end flex play. At this point, I would be trying to see what I could get for Zach Moss. I would be trying to sell it as if he's their RB1 and Jonathan Taylor's getting traded. Someone will probably take that bait.
I love every single one of your sell highs, man. This is like if you collected everything that I hate in fantasy football into like
Yeah.
one slide, this is it. This is so good.
Yeah.
Especially with the Kenneth Walker hate. I love it. I love it. Charbonnet is going to be the
It's not
starter
even
by the end of
hate.
the year.
Dude, I'm a fan of him, but it's just when you see his usage declining like that, and then you're starting to see key downs being eaten up, and then it's their run style looks different to me. Charbonnet is planting a foot and he's cutting, right? And then so he's doing what the scheme wants him to do. Kenneth Walker keeps bouncing. He keeps trying to do like what LaShawn McCoy used to do or what Le'Veon Bell used to do. And that's really, if you have an elite O-line that's going to eventually open up holes and get to the second level, you can hit home run. And we have seen Kenneth Walker hit home runs. Or if you get 15 goal line carries a game like he's been getting. But neither of those feel sustainable to me. Whereas, dude, Tony Pollard's just getting workhorse. Even though he's coming off the tightrope surgery, even though he has not been as effective as you were hoping when you drafted him where you are, I would rather take that bet. Bijan, based on his usage trends the last few weeks, he did get stuffed against Detroit. That's a tough defense. It feels like Bijan, at least they're finally starting to realize that with Desmond Ridder, they have one way to win. That one way to win is to workhorse Bijan and to throw to him out of the backfield a lot. And both of those feel far more sustainable and like they'll have far more long-term upside than Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. The call on Bijan has always been if he gets the work, he could be the fantasy RB1.
Yeah.
He looked so good. He looked so good against Jacksonville. I was up at 6:30 in the morning watching Bijan.
Yeah. Well, compare that though to Kenneth Walker, right? And what direction they feel like they're in. Right now, Kenneth's outscoring him, dude. That is not a hard sell. That is not a hard sell to someone, I don't think. So personally, for me, I'll take Bijan the rest of the year for sure. For sure, it's not close.
Brian Robinson Jr., I just hate him. I just don't like him. The Commanders stink. There's no way this is sustainable. He's not that great. Is he still in the top 10, Yanni, for fantasy scoring?
He has to be. He had 12 points this week, 12.8 and half PPR.
I am like...
He fumbled on the half-yard line, and Terry recovered. And he would have had another 20-point week this week if he didn't fumble in the red zone. And he got stopped 3 times on the goal line the week before for a 7-point total. He would actually be a top 3 running back still, based on those 4 carries. So, yes, he's top 10 still.
Listen, I'm the biggest opportunity guy in the world. I'm the biggest who is the workhorse. I want that guy in the world. But I am just planting my foot down. Brian Robinson is not good at football. If you can find somebody who loves him as much as Yanni loves him, maybe you can get something for him. I don't know. I just hate the guy. I will sell him high all year. I hate that team. Jalen Waddle's my next one. I mean, the theory behind this is the ball's getting spread out more this year on Miami, and they're really, really focusing on feeding Tyreek. Tyreek said before the season he's going for the all-time receiving yards record. It seems like the Dolphins are trying to get that for him, and Jalen Waddle's been suffering a little bit. I think he had like a long reception to kind of save his day against the Bills on Sunday, but I just don't like the way it's trending for him. And the Dolphins are a huge public team right now. Everybody loves Mike McDaniel. Everybody loves Tua. Everybody loves the Dolphins. So this is a guy I think you could potentially get a haul for. And I mean, like, it hurts trading Waddle. I love Waddle. But yeah, you might be able to get a serious haul for him. And I wouldn't trade him for peanuts either, right? Like, make sure that if you're trading Waddle, that you get like a stud, because like he's still a piece on like one of the best offenses in the league. So there's plenty to like there, but I don't think that he will be able to repeat what he did last year. It certainly is trending that way. And then last but not least, Alexander Mattison. I featured him on a buy low 2 weeks, and I didn't just magically change my mind. This was always a rental. Alexander Mattison, when we recommended him as a buy low, I'm looking it up right now on Yahoo. So when I recommended him as a buy low, it was week 2. His 4 games that were coming up after that recommendation were the Chargers, Carolina, Kansas City, in Chicago. So next week they're going to be playing Kansas City. That's going to be kind of a tough one with Chris Jones. I wouldn't expect a big game there, but Chicago in Week 6 is going to be the one. If Madison has like a solid game, like the last two games he ran for like 90 yards plus, if he does that again, or maybe he does that and gets in the end zone in Chicago, I would immediately go to sell him. Like you don't need a premium player for him. Like that would be nice if you can get one, or like just even a solid flex for him. I would do it. Because they just brought Cam Akers to town. It seems like it's a little bit sketchy for him, but he was always a rental. That was the move. You're gonna just like buy him and then sell him later. Get to ride his like nice 4 weeks and then sell him off to the next guy. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like a Giga Brain sort of move, right? Planning on buying and then selling a player, but that was always the plan with him. I mean, he's in the league I bought him in. He's done good for me so far. Like, I think that roster has like it has Pollard, it has Josh Kelly, Madison, and AJ Dillon. And Madison's kind of kept me in it the last 2 weeks, so I've been happy with it so far. But I'm not planning on like keeping him in that league. It's just long term, no, thank you.
Depending on how the next 2 weeks shake out, that's a really good one. Maybe because of name value, you'd have to package it, but maybe not. That's a good one to like keep an eye on the Brees Halls of the world, the Ramondre Stevensons of the world, even Joe Mixon if he does bad enough the next 2 weeks. That's a really good one that might look elite on paper after Chicago.
Yeah.
You might be able to sell him as like a weekly high end 2, low end 1 guy if he has like 2 more weeks of good double digit scores.
Yeah, don't worry, bro. They traded for Akers, but he's not even getting in. I mean, Madison's clearly the featured back, right? And then just throw that grenade on somebody else.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's gonna do it for us. Short one this week, or today, I guess. But I gotta edit after this too, so we'll keep these ones a little bit shorter. If you made it through the video, thank you. Please comment, like, subscribe. What comment do we want to have the viewers leave us today, Yanni?
In the spirit of Hafunga and James Conner getting in a fist fight, which running back do you think would be the toughest MMA fighter in the NFL? Who would make the best one? Let us know.
I like it. All right, we'll catch you guys on Wednesday morning for the head coach episode.